Hey, Brian. Zach.
Brian and Zach are actually live from mass distribution right now.
It kind of just
Awesome.
finished.
We're wrapping up.
What's that, Brian?
We just gave away 250 here at the old North End Center.
Awesome.
We just gave away 250 here at the One Center.
Yes, heard you. Great.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn your video off for now, and then we will be coming back to you.
Sounds good.
Roger.
All right, let's get started, Mayor.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. It's Friday, May 8th, and we're coming to the end of another long week in this COVID-19 emergency. It's a week where we have been talking a lot about this new stage of the emergency that we're headed into. And another sign that we are entering that transitioning into this new stage came earlier today when Governor Scott announced new policies on summer camps and childcare. And, I fully support these steps and how the governor is rolling these out. I think we are doing the careful restart of activities here in Vermont the right way and in a significantly different way than too many other states where we've been careful not to start these actions until the public health conditions that the experts are saying must be met before you can safely attempt reopening activities have been met. And again, you've got those up here on the slide. First of all, we've had more than 2 weeks of very low levels of new infections. Secondly, the healthcare system is strong and resourced and ready for the challenges ahead. And most significantly, and something we really had virtually none of back when the emergency started in March here in Vermont, we have this robust public health capacity that didn't exist before. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that public health capacity to kick things off in a moment. But before moving to that, I want to be really clear that as we are looking ahead and having these discussions, which is welcome discussions about new activities, and it is good news, harder and good news. I want to be clear, really clear, that this does not mean that things are going back to normal. This emergency is far from over. Most public health experts think that unless we get really lucky, we are going to be battling this virus for a long time, could well be more than a year. And we're going to continue to need to be careful and do things differently when we're outside the home. And that's none of these announcements should undermine that. The governor has loosened the stay-home order so that some level of socialization and larger groups are allowed. But by no means does that order say just go back and go back to the old way of being outside the home. There's still a strong guidance that if you are going to socialize with other people, it should be with other trusted households that have been following these public health guidelines strictly for during this period. He recommends that these interactions happen outside and that you still be 6 feet or more apart from other people to minimize the chance of transmission. Face coverings are still going to be recommended. They're going to be part of our life going forward, it seems, for months. Hygiene remains critical. The loosening does not apply to people over 65 who have underlying health conditions. And there the guidance continues to be, and it may be for some time, that population should continue to shelter at home. I want to acknowledge how hard that is. I was sort of hoping it might be possible to see my parents this weekend for Mother's Day. I think people who have loved ones in nursing homes, it's an even more challenging situation. We had a call earlier this week from we had this seniors task force that we've coordinated, and hearing about these stories, that the best we can do right now is to have the people in the nursing home gather on one side of a window, and the family can come to the other side of a closed window. Is really it's both awesome innovation that's getting set up, and that some greater way of connection is being found than these Zoom phone calls, FaceTime phone calls. At the same time, it's heartbreaking to hear that that's what our life is right now. I think to get through it, we gotta recognize that this sacrifice has been worth it. It has clearly saved many lives here in Vermont, and it has put us in a position that we can make more progress, and we can have this reopening, restart conversation. And I think we should give meaning to this first stage, and take strength from the successes of this first stage, and confidence that we're gonna do well here in Vermont in these future stages, even as we grapple with and sit with how the fact that this is gonna be hard, and we're gonna keep at this for a long time to come. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this next stage. A couple weeks ago, we actually were having conversations here with the mayor's team, city team. It was very clear. I think we will all long remember this first stage is essentially the flatten the curve stage of this pandemic, and it was really clear what we were trying to achieve together, and we did it. It is. Until this week, I was really grappling, like, how are we gonna? What is the mandate? What is the charge? The logo for the next phase? And this week, I think it really became clear. I think we are going to talk about this next stage as the box it in stage. And box it in has these 4 essential strategies, and we talked a little about them on Wednesday. Actually, I don't know that we talked a whole lot about it on Wednesday. Let me quickly go over them here, and then I do want to say we're gonna have longer conversations about this, I think, for some time to come. Starting next week, we're gonna have another telephone town meeting on Tuesday night to have a kind of longer form discussion of what box it in means. But quickly, it involves, first and foremost, testing. We've heard a lot about the growth in capacity from Dr. Leffler of testing here in Chittenden County. This is testing so that we quickly can know within a day, certainly, or sometimes even hours, whether an individual has COVID-19 or not. The next part of the strategy number 2 is supported isolation, isolating all infected people. And I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about this strategy in a moment. Number 3, find. Sometimes that's referred to as trace. This is the contact tracing element of this public health strategy, where when someone has tested positive, they are isolating, and this team from the Department of Health goes to work trying to figure out all of the close contacts of that infected person during the contamination period, during the period in which that person has been contagious. That is very labor-intensive, slow work. Each new infection takes almost half a day or more for a trained contact tracing professional to follow up on and figure out. What results from that is a list of close contacts, people that were potentially exposed to the infected person. And those people are asked to quarantine, and they're really strongly encouraged to quarantine. And that quarantine is we shouldn't have in your mind when you hear that quarantine language, that's stronger than what we've all been going through in this sort of stay home quarantine, where we've basically been inside for most of the time. The quarantine in this sense is intended to be a supported quarantine, where literally the person only leaves quarantine, only leaves their home if there is some kind of emergency medical requirement. And that stage 2 will probably require more of a public health posture and support in the weeks ahead. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, another time. Today, I did just want to talk a little bit more about the isolation stage, the supportive isolation. And I wanted to focus on this because we've talked about this numerous times here on these press briefings, and there's continues this, what the strategy here is continues to evolve. And I think this is really an area where I think it's important that the general public understand this stage, and this, again, this sort of under focus on it up until now. All of us could be called upon to, kind of play our part in this isolation stage if we become, or one of our loved members, our loved ones becomes infected during this emergency. Isolation is going to become something that we, have to grapple with personally. So up until now, most of the isolation in this emergency throughout America has taken place in people's homes. There is a growing recognition that it is very hard to successfully isolate in many homes. I mean, if a person's living by themselves, that can be okay, and if they're healthy enough that they can kind of take care of all their needs. But many people, even if they don't have a serious infection, are really very tired and hard for them to kind of support themselves through this period. There is a great risk if you live with anyone else, certainly in a multi-generational household. It can be a really big problem for someone to be trying to isolate at home. There's a real risk of others becoming contaminated and sick. And there are many other people who live in homes where it's impossible to really effectively even attempt to self-isolate because it's a congregate living facility of some sort where there's shared bathrooms or shared kitchens and or even shared bedroom space. So that is why this Holiday Inn site was set up back in mid-April. It was to be an isolation site that was resourced that people could go to. Our understanding is that the state's plan for supportive isolation is evolving, like so many other things, as we move out of this first phase and into phase two. The state has indicated us that they've closed down the Holiday Inn site, and they are launching a new isolation facility in the Rutland area. Our understanding is that that facility is ready to take people today. Other strategies to support home isolation are also under consideration. There isn't an organized effort here yet, but something that the city has been talking about is, could we somehow help the state make sure that food is getting to people who are in isolation posture at their home? Is there something that the city or volunteers could do to help drop off goodie bags? Is something that some locations have tried. There's a need for good Wi-Fi and entertainment services for people who are really doing isolation right. So this conversation is going to continue. I'm happy the state is continuing to resource facilities to make isolation better. Our understanding is there is also much stronger guidance that is going to be coming out to primary care physicians and others that are working with with infected persons, so that the awareness of these supported isolation resources becomes much wider known very soon. Let's see, I'm just looking at the slide. Did we miss anything here? I did want to, yes, sorry. The Holiday Inn site is being decommissioned as this COVID-19 recovery center. It is still going to be part of the state's and Vermont's response to this emergency. And we'll have more to say on this Monday. Our understanding is the Holiday Inn site is going to play a role in Vermont's sort of ongoing commitment to properly care for the homeless during this emergency. And we'll have a briefing on that Monday, as well as changes that are coming with respect to the North Beach campground, which is something that we have talked about numerous times on this briefing. We'll have an update on that on Monday. Let's keep moving, Olivia. So now we're going to bring Brian and Zach back in here in a moment to talk about the Burlington Community Mask Initiative. We've talked about this many times. Just a quick update here. We wanted to announce that there has been substantial additional progress in this effort over the course of the week. There have been numerous drop-offs at grocery stores and other locations around town. More than 3,500 masks were distributed this week to Burlingtonians in those locations. Brian, as one of the real leaders in this community effort, and it's been an effort with a lot of leaders. We've had Councilor Joan Shannon was really part of the formation of the concept, and the Lyric Theater Sewers played a huge role, and the Milton Sewing Guild, and Vermont Teddy Bear, and so many others. We're up to hundreds of volunteers that have participated in this in one way or another, is my understanding. What's the latest, Brian?
Hey, thanks very much, Mayor. We distributed about 3,500 masks this week, maybe a couple more. As of today, we might cross 4,000, and that'll be more than 15,000 masks distributed to date, which is a big number for us. I'm going to turn it over in a moment to Zach Williamson from BCA, who will talk about some of the distribution sites we have planned for next week. But our broad plan is that our next big push on distributions will be next week. And after that, we're going to start tapering it down. We'll make sure that we have masks available for folks who want them and request them. But next week will probably be our last big push on major distribution sites. And we're adding a number of sites to that group next week. So let me have Zach come over here and take this in just a moment.
Welcome,
Excellent.
Zach.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, as you can see coming up on the slide here, we have a robust plan put in place for next week, a total of 11 different locations where the public is welcome to come and get a totally free, reusable, and washable mask. It's been a huge, huge effort, as you've already talked about. We're really happy working through the Trusted Community Voices partners and that program that has recently launched, that we've added some more kind of neighborhood establishments that to hopefully to reach some populations we haven't gotten to yet. So we are continuing with four big drops at the kind of major grocery stores in town: City Market, Market 32, and Hannaford's out on the new North End. But then we're adding, you can see there on Tuesday, we're adding the Nepali Market on North Avenue. We're adding the Maui African Market on Wednesday on North Street, and then on Thursday when we're on North Street at the Halal Market. Those are all at 4 o'clock. We'll be there passing out masks, and it'll be a really great effort to get those out on the street and into people's hands, and get some masks out there for everyone. Again, they're free and totally reusable, so it's a great program. And then working with our friends at the Frederick Free Library, we're there on Sunday. They're launching, as you've probably already talked about, previously a curbside service on Sunday from noon to 4, and so we'll have masks there as well for people to pick up.
Zach, great work. Thank you for that update. Thank you for everything you're doing. Zach, again, is someone who, prior to COVID-19, you might have seen at one of the street festivals around Burlington. He played a huge leadership role in the highlight festivals on New Year's and on the Festival of Fools, and played a role in Jazz Fest as well. He's taken all those organizational skills and deep knowledge of Burlington and has repurposed it to head up this volunteer initiative out of the Burlington Resource and Recovery Center. And this mask initiative is just one of those numerous volunteer undertakings. And it's just been great, Zach, that you've stepped up in this role. Thank you for your service and what you've been doing there. And I really, it's great to see that this newly constituted Trusted Community Voices team is already having an impact in the way the city deploys services in this emergency. That team consulting on these being the right locations to help reach some of our different communities within Burlington is a great early step. And we'll have more from that team in the weeks ahead. So I think that's the mask update, unless Brian or Zach, you got anything more you want to share before we move on?
I don't think so. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Let's now talk about parks this weekend. Part of the announcement on Wednesday was that as soon as the governor indicated that guidance was loosening up and that we could restart a variety of parks facilities. We announced that we'd be doing that for this weekend, and Cindy White, our Parks Recreation Director, is here to give us all an update on how is that effort going. I know it was a bunch of work to try to get these facilities stood up again. Can people expect them open this weekend as they head outside, Cindy?
Mayor, it's great to be here. I think the last time I was on, I was announcing the closure of all these places. So excited to be back on announcing the reopening of them. Our tennis courts are now open. So you'll find those if you go to them, all the courts are open. Excuse me, all the tennis courts are open. Our skate park is open and our dog park is open. But I'd also like to get back to the message that the mayor was sharing about getting out and about in Burlington this weekend. So while all those facilities are back open, it's not open as normal. So if you get to a tennis court and you find that the courts are busy, please find another court to play at or come back at another time. We have a multiple number of courts in the city. If you live in the South End, we have courts at Oakledge and Callahan. Center City has a court at Roosevelt. Out at the New North End is Leddy and Appletree courts. And in the east side of the city, we have Szymanska Park. So again, if you're looking to play tennis, one court's busy, please go to another one. The second message is around our dog parks. So while the dog parks are open, this is a time for your dog to get the physical exercise. It's not back to social time for those that are showing up. And maybe that was their best time about using the dog park was actually the social time with their friends at the park. So please only come to the dog park if your dog really needs that space. If you're able to still take your dog out for a walk in your neighborhood, that is still what we're recommending. But we are making those dog parks available for those that really don't have that option. And we're recommending at the dog park that you wear a mask because occasionally, it doesn't happen often, but occasionally you might have to separate a couple dogs and we want you to have a mask to be safe. And skate park, same thing. If you get there and it's busy, please think about coming back at another time. Some things that aren't open yet. So our playgrounds are not open yet. Lots of shared surfaces on those playgrounds. So we've really clearly marked that they're off limits, and people really have been pretty much following that, I would say. And in some ways we say that our basketball courts are closed, but really what it is our basketball hoops are off. But we're finding that the community is using those courts in many creative, good ways. So you might see someone trying to learn to ride their tricycle on the court, or you might see a scooter, or you might find some really creative art drawings on there in chalk. So I like to think that our hoops are down, but our basketball courts are still being used in other unique, creative ways. The final message that we really want to share is about this concept the state says about arrive, play, and then leave. We're coming up with a little creative wording around that, but the concept is, for example, if you wanted to come play pickleball, you would arrive at the court ready to go. So you've got your gear on, you get out of your car, so that's arriving, or I like to think that you got there by bicycle, but whether you got by bike or by car, you arrive, you go out and you play your game of pickleball, and then you leave and you go home, as compared to arriving, chatting with your friends in the parking lot. Then you might go play a little bit of pickleball, you stop and have a lot of conversation, and then when pickleball's done, you all hang out together because that's what you always had done when you played pickleball. So now we're asking you to arrive, play that game of pickleball, and then head home. So that's pretty much what's going on in the parks this weekend. Excited to have everybody having so few new amenities that they can appreciate. And the one final point I'd like to make, we'll be talking about this at the Fun at Home time at the end, but I was pretty proud to wear my pink Kids Day shirt this year.
That is a pretty great shirt, Cindy. The graphics and arts team that you guys work with is awesome. What a great update, Cindy. Thank you for the team hustling so hard to get everything open, and thank you for clearly laying out what is possible now, but what the guidance continues to be. So thanks. We'll be checking back in with you. I'm sure there'll be more to say about the city's parks in the weeks ahead. We certainly do hope there will be further announcements about additional reopening, but we'll have to wait and see on that first. So thank you. We now are going to go to Luke McGowan, who is back to give our weekly update on the city's COVID-19 Resource and Recovery Center. The Recovery Center continues to provide, we hope, significant guidance to Burlingtonians on a whole range, or encountering a whole range of issues in this emergency. More than 900 contacts have now come into the Resource and Recovery Center to date for one-on-one consultations and direct assistance. And that is in addition to the hundreds of people every day that have been checking the online resources that get richer pretty much every day as a result of the work of the Resource Recovery team. Luke, welcome back. What's the latest this week?
Good to be back. We had another big week. As you can see, we continue to see kind of shifting in the issue areas that people are calling in about. Certainly, over the last week, we've seen people interested and continuing to be interested in the mask program, which you heard an update on earlier. We've also been hearing from people who are grateful for the mask program. And I did get a note from the U.S. Department of Veterans down at Lakeside saying that they were able to distribute to all of their unmasked patients and that they were so touched by that. And, the quote was, "I can't tell you how much this means and how appreciative we are for this effort." And, so I just wanted to say, if you're out there listening, we're also grateful to all of you and to the veterans for their service. The other kind of point I wanted to raise was we're continuing to hear quite a bit about unemployment and sort of folks who are trying to navigate the unemployment insurance system. We gave an update last week that we essentially shared. We've streamlined some of our contact with the Department of Labor, and that's been paying off this week. So we had about a dozen new requests come in over the last few days, and we kind of worked with our Department of Labor contact and system, and we're able to get half of those resolved, and half of them are now being, 6 of them resolved, 6 of those inquiries are now being worked on right now. But that process is starting to bear some fruit, which is important because there are people who really are relying on these benefits. We also this week hosted another mental health webinar, and I think if we go to the next slide, you can see Anthony there in the middle from our CJC team, and Mayor, I think you joined this conversation earlier this week as well. This we're seeing is just an important effort of the RRC to bring community partners together to answer the important questions that are out there in our community. So we're responding to the types of inquiries we're getting at the RRC, not just through phone and email consultation, but through efforts like this. And this webinar is hosted and archived, as all the other ones are, on the website. So if anyone is kind of dealing with mental health challenges, especially with your kids, I know, my own son has entered the biting phase all of a sudden, so it's certainly testing us, and I know it's difficult for all the parents, especially out there. So this was a valuable conversation to get some tools to how to address that. Next week, we're hosting another really important topic area for a number of, almost everybody's touched by this somehow in Burlington. People have questions about rental housing. Move-in time is coming. Move-in, move-out time is coming. There's lots of questions that still remain. So we are hosting on May 14th at 2 p.m. a conversation about kind of exactly what people should expect, what they should be planning for, get their questions answered. And that's joined by a great panel that includes Vermont Legal Aid, UVM, our very own Department of Permits and Inspections, and the Vermont Landlords Association. So we're answering questions on both sides, from renters and from property owners. So I encourage everybody to join that call. So I think that's all I got. Unless you got questions for me, I can leave it at that.
I know, Luke, stick around. We're going to hear from members of the media in a moment. But nice work with the webinars, and I do think these are enduring resources for people to know about and get more advice on. Excited the rental housing one is coming up. I think this is an important time for that conversation, and we do. So let's keep going. What's next, Olivia? We've got, here we are, we're at the fun at home resource of the day. And this is they've all been great ones, but this one is, a great example of how the city's team, this cultural resources team, has really tried to find a way to keep enriching this community, even as we are grappling with this unprecedented emergency and we can no longer come together in the normal ways. For 35 years, there's been this great Burlington tradition this time of year of Kids Day. Emma is here. Emma Allen is here to tell us how it is going to become Kids Week this year. Emma, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We're really excited that we get to do this. A little over a month ago, when the governor extended the stay-at-home order into May, we knew that Kids Day as we know it wouldn't be able to exist. Of course, Kids Days happened for decades. So we knew that we wanted to come up with something else so we could still be able to connect with our partners and with our community and provide some fun, original content and share what everyone has going on right now. So we came up with Kids Week. So it is a virtual event starting tomorrow and running over the next week. It'll be on Facebook and on our website. And we have a bunch of really cool things that I'd love to highlight. So usually the event kicks off with a parade. So we will have a virtual parade tomorrow. A bunch of people submitted videos, so we're excited to share that. Some other highlights, we produced a scavenger hunt with Burlington Wildways. And so we want to encourage folks to get out and explore different parts of Burlington that are maybe a little bit less busy than, let's say, the bike path and waterfront park. So get out, exercise, and check out some more hidden gems. We'll also be producing a youth talent show, and we're still soliciting videos for that. So if folks are interested, you can submit videos on our Facebook page. That's any kid that's interested in joining. We are also kicking off our fundraiser for our Recce Nutrition program. It's a really important program that we run all summer long with kids. It's the start of the free meals program, and it's also entertainment and nutrition activities for kids. So we think it'll be even more important than it usually is this summer, and we really want to highlight that work in the community. And then other than that, daily we'll have a bunch of different fun videos and resources from a variety of different partners. So again, we're just really excited that we could come up with something to look forward to and something to celebrate, even though our events as they normally happen won't get to exist. Yeah.
Well said. And thank you for your hard work. Emma has played a huge leadership role in all of the city's events, particularly the waterfront events, parks events for years now. Grew up in the area too, right, Emma? This is
yep.
This is
yep.
So probably never imagined that when you went to Kids Day as a kid that you'd be producing a virtual version of it. But you guys have really put a huge effort into this. I encourage everybody to go check out these resources. The Burlington Wildways Scavenger Hunt, just to remind people, I think this awareness of Wildways is still something emerging. This is the new trail that starts or finishes in the Ethan Allen Homestead and stretches through the Intervale to the Salmon Hole. And really last summer was if I've got my years right, I think this is just the second year really that this new this trail has existed, and it's got great signage out there, so you can, you'll be, if you didn't know you were still in Burlington while you're on this trail, you'd think you're off at times deep in the Vermont woods, and it's really a great resource. So I think great idea, Emma, to have a scavenger hunt along it. This is a resource that is underutilized and that is going to continue to grow and expand. I saw Zoe Richards, who's been the leader on this, and I know there's expansion efforts announced soon. So great kind of collision of different Burlington initiatives coming together here. Well done, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Couple, I think a couple final thoughts here. So first of all, there has been an auction going on called Save Local VT that is closing today. So we just want to bring some attention to it at this briefing. Before it closed, there are over 80 items from 40 different merchants, with all of the proceeds that are generated by this auction going back into loans and grants to small businesses. We have so many small businesses in this community that are in many ways the lifeblood of this community, a core part of what Burlington is, and many of them really are on the edge right now. Their continued existence through this emergency is at stake. This is one way that you can help with those businesses if you're in a position to do so. So there's the website, btvauction.org. And does anyone know when is that going to close today? Do we know the time, Olivia?
It closes tomorrow. I don't know the time.
Oh, I see. Closing tomorrow. It says it right there. Get your bids in today. Okay. I kind of blended that together. Excellent. So you got the rest of the day and into tomorrow. Check it out. And then finally, kind of mindful of the fact that we are going to be in this emergency. It certainly looks like for months to come, we are planning on doing our best to communicate throughout this emergency. We think these briefings have become an important part of the way the community kind of stays in touch with what is going on. But listen, we want to keep making these better. If you have thoughts for us about how these briefings could, information that you wish we were including that we're not, if there are topics you'd like us to address, send your thoughts there by email to olivia@burlingtonvt.gov. We know we got a crowd on Facebook right now as well. People should feel free, of course, to post there, and we will try to think about this feedback and find a way to keep making these better. So with that, Olivia, do we have any questions?
We do, and I can update what I said about the auction. Bidding closes tomorrow, Saturday at 11 p.m. So people can get their bids in until then. Today, for members of the media who are joining and have questions, please continue to email them to me. But then if you are watching through the Zoom, what I will do is try to unmute you in Zoom so that you can ask your question directly. We have a few questions so far, and I don't see those people here in the Zoom. So I will start with our usual protocol of reading those questions out. So our first question is from Colin Flanders at 7 Days. This question is, we have heard from citizens concerned about the expected flood of college students returning to Burlington this summer from places with ongoing coronavirus outbreaks. With the popular June 1st move-in date only a few weeks away, how is the city preparing to handle this? And if that plan is still being worked out, can you say what exact preparations the city is considering at this moment and when people can expect a detailed plan?
Great, Colin. So, yeah, we've been hearing those questions and concerns as well, and people are right to have questions. We know that there are significant hotspots of the virus kind of all around us. We know Massachusetts and Boston continues to be a place of significant numbers of infections, and we know certainly New York continues in many ways to be the kind of epicenter of the outbreak on the East Coast, at least, even though both metro areas, things are getting better. We think they're on the down slope, but it appears that there is considerable time where there's going to be a high level of virus transmission in those areas and elsewhere. And this is going to evolve and change over time. We have, every expectation that there will be new outbreaks at different times and different months. So the concern is appropriate. What we've been doing is we've had a kind of working group led from the city side by Bill Ward, our director of permitting inspections, who has been in touch with the colleges, and there has been a lot of communication with the state. And here's the plan that's emerging, and I would say there are probably details of this that still need to be filled in, but the basic outlines I think are unlikely to change in big ways, which is that the self-quarantine order mandate from the governor that is currently in place is likely to stay in some form in place through this turnover, through June 1st. And people who are returning to Burlington are going to be expected to observe that and honor it. And here's what that looks like. So for families that are coming in, dropping off a student and then leaving, the state is not terribly concerned about those family members. They're certainly, everyone sort of thinks that should work okay. If they spend some hours here and then they depart, they're not going to be expected to quarantine during that period. They can help drop stuff off and then they can leave. People who are staying in, the students or other individuals coming back to the state, are going to be expected to quarantine and not risk exposing others to outside of the household, at least that they're in, to possible infection. Here's a part of it, a new part of the event that I heard just the last couple of days, and it really encouraged me that this plan could work. And I think it sort of speaks to the potential of this new phase that we're heading into and how we really have new protections now, new public health infrastructure that is going to be operationalized in ways that can have an impact. On around day 7 of the quarantine, our understanding from the state is that there will be an offer to these individuals who have come back to go get some kind of go get tested, and that will if the person then tests after 7 days, if they test negative, they may be allowed to end their quarantine more quickly. If they test positive, of course, that will then start that whole system that we talked about earlier, the box it in system, so that new infection can be contained and not spread. I think this is a plan that it seems to me has the potential to work well. It's probably a preview of an even larger scale plan that is going to be needed for the fall when there are larger numbers of students returning for classes. I think it's probably a good thing that we're getting an opportunity to try that on a smaller scale now, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of lessons learned from it and some additional guidance that will be developed, and that's basically the plan at this point. I think I got Jordan that is here in the office and has been part of some of these discussions.
One other thing I think would be worth adding is the people moving furniture out of their homes. This is a time where you'll see a lot of furniture on the Greenbelt and people not really knowing how to dispose of things in their home as they're moving out. And UVM is taking the lead in designating more areas in which people can drop off unwanted furniture or other items for disposal, so that we don't have furniture scattered on the Greenbelt throughout the city. Great. Something that they do already every year, and now they're going to expand that further.
Excellent. All right, Olivia, I think we addressed that.
Great. Our next question is from Aiden Quigley at VT Digger. Aiden, I don't see you here in the Zoom attendees. If I'm missing you, I'll give you a second just to use the raise hand function if you're here in Zoom, so that I can see you. I don't think you are, though. So I will go ahead and read the question through our usual way. So Aiden's question is the Holiday Inn site closed today? What happened to the people who were staying there? How many people were staying there?
So my understanding is, yes, this site is not operating at this point as a COVID-19 recovery center. One of the reasons it's been closed down is there were not people staying there. There were numerous nights where there were 0 occupants. I think the largest number of occupants that ever were there at one time, I believe, was 2. One can understand why the state thought maybe there was a better way to use that pretty large facility, which can house up to about 150 rooms in it, I believe. So again, we'll have more on Monday about how that facility is going to continue to play a role in the emergency response. Why were there so few people that went there? I think it is a combination of factors that the site opened on April 13th, which if you go back and look at the data, that's almost exactly the day when the number of new infections in Vermont and Chittenden County really starts to decline very quickly. The other piece of it is there up until now, the guidance for supported isolation has been a work in progress, and there has not been strong guidance up until now. I think that's going to change in the box it in stage of this. I think that this strategy will be considerably more important in this next stage, because the implications and the risks of home isolation that is imperfect was during the flatten the curve stage, the stay home stage. That might lead to another infection or 2 in that household, but because we were all staying at home and we were in this broad mitigation, socially distant posture, there were very limited new infections outside of the home. In the box it in stage, when there's going to be more and more activities going on, someone else in the home getting infected and then going out of the home to other activities has a higher risk to it, and has the potential for a greater spread of the disease. So I think this is certainly, it seems to me all of the public health experts who are really engaged in how do we have a successful suppression strategy, supported isolation is increasingly something that there's growing discussion that America needs to do differently in the coming phase than we've done in the first phase. And so I am confident that this is the state's focus on this is there, and you're going to hear increasing guidance and direction on this in the weeks ahead.
Great. And Aiden let me know that he is watching through CCTV's YouTube stream. So that's why I didn't see him in Zoom. And I love how many ways people can tune into these briefings.
We do. We really appreciate that CCTV has followed these so consistently and made it possible for so many Burlingtonians to view them through that channel. The one downside of that is that you can't zoom in as a result. So, but we really appreciate that these get archived and that CCTV has been promoting them. So thank you.
Yes. And that is what we have for today for questions from the media.
Okay, excellent. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone enjoys the weekend. I hope the mothers in Burlington particularly have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. Get out there and take advantage of the new guidelines from the governor. Do so carefully with awareness of how they're laid out, but we hope it really changes. This weekend feels different than the past couple months. Everyone deserves it. Thank you, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.